So, Dr. Mosheer Amer, thank you so much for agreeing to spend a few minutes with me today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Peter.
Mosheer, I'll call you Mosheer. You are a professor of English literature at the Islamic University of Gaza. You live in Gaza, but as I understand from talking to you, you're not actually from Gaza. Is that right?
Well, that's correct. I am a third generation Palestinian refugee. We are originally from a village called Beit Doras, and that's like 35 kilometers northeast of Gaza, adjacent to Ascalon, or present-day Ashkelon.
And that's on the coast,
Israel proper.
It's on the coast, right?
Yeah,
just
it's
off
not
the coast
far
from Gaza, right? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, and of course, my parents were little kids when they were displaced, together with the families and the villages of Beit Doras at the time of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine in 1948.
So your mother and father both came from the same town with their separate parents at that time, right? And they came
with that's correct. Yeah. They came with their parents at the time, together with their siblings. My uncles and
right.
on both sides, at the time. And I heard lots of stories of what happened in 1948 when they were ethnically cleansed from the village. The village was attacked several times in 1947 and 1948, and in the fifth time they were practically ethnically cleansed from that village. And they had that major exodus from Beit Doras village until they settled finally in Gaza. And basically we as a family settled in Khan Yunis, which Gaza is in the southern Gaza Strip.
Now, I don't want you to be insulted by this question, but it's one that's often posed to me when I talk about the expulsion of the Palestinians. Someone said, well, were they expelled or did they just run away? So you may not run to that question, but how?
People don't run away from their homes, just for fun. There was heavy bombardment, there were massacres and militias trying to ethnically cleanse Palestine. In the 1948 war, or ethnic cleansing, or Nakba, there were like 520 Palestinian villages that were destroyed partially or completely, and 3/4 of the Palestinian people, close to 700,000 people or more, who were ethnically cleansed. Either they ran for their life for fear of being massacred, and there were like dozens of massacres committed at the time of that war, or they were forced. They ran under the bombardment, the heavy bombardment of their villages, of their homes, and their towns. The history of the Palestinian Nakba is well documented and well established in a lot of historical studies and in the oral histories that transmitted from one generation to another. And myself, I was told several stories of how my parents, my mom and dad, when they were little kids, they narrated to me the events and the horrors they faced at the time of 1948 Nakba.
Wow. So they came, you told me your parents were actually just young adolescents. They came with their parents. So you're a third generation refugee. Is that right? Did they come to a refugee camp right away? Like what happened?
Of course, they may. They first settled in, and that's in itself, a terrible situation that they found themselves in. When they ran there for their lives under the heavy bombardment, and they couldn't take anything except just a few, clothes and anything that they could carry. And there were no shelters, there were no tents, there nothing. They had to eat from, my mom had told me there was no food, no drink, nothing like it. So it was a very difficult and horrendous experience that they faced. And then they settled in Gaza, there was nothing. There were no international organizations at that time to welcome them, to build tents and things like that. So they had to, they sat on the land, on the ground, and nothing, no tents, nothing. And it was difficult. And then after a while, things started to improve a little bit by bit, with the international organizations taking action, providing tents. And then we know the story of how the Palestinian refugee camps were built and developed. And you're talking about, I mean, in the Gaza Strip, I mean, a large percentage, over 60% of the population are originally refugees. And we have like 9 refugee camps in the Gaza Strip. I mean, major refugee camps that are still testament to the ethnic cleansing that happened in 1947, 1948 of the past century.
So I hear sometimes people referring to an ongoing Nakba. Do you use that terminology, and what do you mean by it if you do?
Well, it is an ongoing. It's not just a chapter that finished and we just reminisce about what happened. We are living the 1947-48 Nakba, and it is an ongoing Nakba because we are still a people that is characterized by displacement, by statelessness, by expulsion, by repeated aggressions and siege. And you see the Palestinians from different places being ethnically cleansed. Look at what happened, what is happening in the West Bank. You see, more and more colonization of Palestinian lands, more and more colonization and colonial settlement activities in the in villages, in open areas, in farmland, and also what's happening in East Jerusalem with the Judaization of certain neighborhoods. We all know about the story of Sheikh Jarrah last year, and what happened. This is a testament and evidence of an ongoing Nakba. The Israeli occupation continues to cocoon the Palestinians into Bantustans, surrounded by military installations, surrounded by heavily armed colonial settlements, bypass roads, settler-only roads, and Arab roads. And you see that this is a pattern or a matrix of control that is, again, another word for an ongoing Nakba that the Palestinians have been subjected to.
Mosheer, I'm afraid I'm only going to have time for one more question. I want to ask you quite a personal question. I know that you were a Fulbright scholar. You studied in the United States. You also did your PhD in Australia. And for some reason that to a Canadian finds quite bizarre, you decided to return to Gaza, where under occupation, electricity shortages. Why in the world would an intelligent person do that?
Well, because I am intelligent. You said it. Well, this is, I presume I am. This is my homeland. This is my birthplace. This is where my family is, and my siblings, and relatives, and my loved ones, my friends. And this is where I see that I am going to live and die. I mean, I had wonderful opportunities to live in Australia and in America, and these are wonderful countries. And I met some of the best people I have ever seen in my life and come to know. But I saw only Palestine, I saw only Gaza as my home, as where I want to live, and where I want to improve the quality of my own life and the quality of my people's life, to fight for them, to fight for justice, to fight for a better opportunities for myself and for my people. I define myself as a person who has a cause to fight for in the things that I do. I mean, educating my people, my countrymen and countrywomen, to be good citizens, to fight for justice and to fight for liberation. And that's, I think, is the best thing that I could do for my people, especially with the suffering that I have seen and experienced myself, and the suffering of my parents and my grandparents, the history of the Nakba of 1948, and the ongoing Nakba that my people have been subjected to ever since.
Well, Mosheer, I admire your determination. Thank you, and I admire your intelligence. And,
thank you very much, sir.
And thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me today.
Thank you, sir. All the very best. Thank you very much. Thank you.